Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast. And I'm joined by Scott Bennett, comedian, ladies and gentlemen. And I want more comedians on the podcast as well, because you end up being great guests. So,
oh, no pressure then,
because you're funny, which probably shouldn't be a surprise. But thanks for joining us on the podcast, Scott. It's very much appreciated. Where do we find you today?
Thank you. I am in my dining room, which sounds grander than it actually is. Yes. It sounds like I'm, in the wing. I'm in the West Wing dining room. But no, I'm in the dining room, which is interesting because we're actually having a builder come in a couple of weeks to knock this all through, because we've lived in this house for it's a long time, 15 years, I think, and we haven't done anything. So we've got a little kitchen. So when you're cooking in the kitchen, it's like being like in a proper staff. You sort of are hidden away in a little tiny kitchen, and everyone's having a great time in the front room watching telly, and you're sort of squirreling away, working and slaving. So I'm thinking now, we're gonna have open plan. It's been a long time coming. So this is probably the last 2 weeks. This room will be like this, and it's gonna be absolute chaos then. So that's what's going to happen.
Where I've just had a bloke round this morning. I've just had a man in to come and have a look at a new kitchen downstairs.
Oh, it's when you're opening yourself up to just giving money, paying, financial pain. So
as Yorkshireman, it's not good, is it?
Oh no, because I know as well. It's like one of those things where once it starts, I'm just going to be grumpy for about six. Well, however long. I'm really optimistic there, and I'm going to be grumpy for 6 weeks, but it'll be turned into 6 months, and that'll turn into a year, and then we'll be having Christmas dinner in the shed, and it'll be awful. But then it's like, and then it'll be like, what do you want? Do you want dimmer switches, or do you want like these LED eye retina switches that are 40 grand, but they save you 20 quid a year in your gas electric? Oh yeah, stick them in, mate. Yeah. Would you like a gold leaf on your radiator? Yeah, put that in. Before you know it, it's like Kardashians or something, just skin. So I'm fully braced for the upheaval, but it starts in a couple of weeks.
Have you got any control over the changes?
No. This is not my idea, mate. If I think as well, if it was up to me, and I don't know, maybe I'm assuming most men are the same. I'm not very practical. No. So I would just live in this house and occasionally paint it, and that'd be my lot, really. Yeah. But then I know it's been a long time coming. It literally is like the kitchen's falling apart, like the doors are falling off and stuff. And it's like, I think at some point you're like, we've got to do something. But the pain from now to then, like people are like, it made me laugh. Someone went, "Are you moving out? Well, you have your improvements done." No, because we're not millionaires.
Exactly.
We're going to live in it, mate. We're going to be having a kitchen in the hallway. We're going to be in the front room, and we're going to be living upstairs. That'll be like, this will be out of bounds. This is going to be like chaos down here. So, bracing myself.
Yes, me too, mate. You too, mate. So, how long? When did you start in comedy? How many years have you been doing it now?
I've been doing it. I started in October 2009. So, but I remember it was like first gigs, like a gong show where they do these gigs where it was like 9 people above a pub in Nottingham, and there's hardly anyone in, and you go and you do.
Was it a Spiky Mike one?
Yeah. So you can vote you off with like these glow sticks. And
I've been on one. I've had a go.
Have you been on one? Yeah, they're quite weird, aren't they?
I did stand up for a year, and I didn't quite take to it, but I've done a few gong shows in my time through my Spiky Mike ones. Yeah.
Ruthless. So they can bin you off, can't they? After 2 minutes, they're like, we don't like him for even 2 minutes of our lives. Get off. So I did that for the first gig, and it went well. And then I sort of came away thinking, oh God, this is like the worst thing that could happen in a way. Because now I'm thinking I'm going to do it again. And then before you know it, sort of 2009 I started, and then what are we now? 22. So it's been a long time. I only gave up my day job though in 2017, end of 2017. So it's been a long time coming, I think. A lot of work.
The first time I saw you live was at the Grapes in Sheffield. A long time
God.
Ago. You were the
headliner. I remember that gig.
It were the Grapes of Wrath, they were called.
Yeah,
the Grapes.
I remember it.
The Grapes is no longer there as a music. I used to play there in the band and that kind of stuff.
What's the street? Tippett Street.
Trippett's Lane.
Yeah, I remember because they'd done tickets as well. saying they'd like done it as like a proper gig. And I even remember that night because it's like a tiny little cupboard you're in the bottom. I remember that.
It's an old lady's living room now because I went to, because it's the Arctic Monkeys supported my band, the first ever gig they did on that stage.
Wow.
Which is a bit of history for me. And I went up to just see what it looks like now. And the landlady let me up there and it's just a little old lady's living room now.
You can't put a blue plaque on the wall or anything?
No, nothing. Yes, in fact, she has. Yes, it's Scott Bennett was here.
Yeah, very good, very good. But yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it was a really good venue actually. It was really good. But I remember doing that. Yeah, a long time. About 2010, 2009. 2009. I think that was. And
you were headlining then, so it didn't take you that long to start headlining. Were you a headliner at that time? Were you?
No, I think. No, I think
one of your first shots at headlining type thing.
Yeah, I think what happened. I think it was like 30 quid or something. And I think what happened is when I started, I think when you do comedy, you can sound like a comic, even though you might not have all the material might not quite be there. So I think I was able to do the performance side of it because I'd watched so much comedy and I understood the rhythm of it and the mechanics of it. So I was able to sort of sell my stuff really well. I think that was kind of what it was, rather than being like, oh, this is easy. It wasn't. And I think that's all it was. And then, so, I mean, it took a long time to get, I mean, with anything, like if you did music, it's 1 to 2 years as an apprenticeship in it. And you're doing like, you're working and grafting around the country, you're getting odd bits of money to cover your fuel and that. And then I think it started to get more serious sort of 2012, I think. 2012, 2013 was when I was like, oh, I'm getting odd paid weekends here and there. And then it really accelerated sort of 15 onwards. That's
how long did it take to get from the gong shows to being considered for headline slots or odd slots? Or
I would say, well, smaller gigs, it was about 2 years, but then like to be doing where I am now, which is like headlining the Comedy Store, it has taken a decade.
A lot of people don't see that, do they, behind the scenes? That night at the Grapes, just to reflect on it one more time, Kyrie Pritchard McLean were on the bill. I remember her being on it.
Yeah.
She's like only just really gone mainstream in the last couple of years or so and being on the telly and stuff.
Yeah.
But people, when I've had chats with comedians, I always like to celebrate the hard work but people will look at comedian on the telly and think that's easy. But they don't fully appreciate the 10, 15 years that have gone on before that. Traveling up and down the countries, traveling to Nottingham to do a gong show, getting paid nothing for 2 minutes, traveling back your petrol to wherever you are living and all that. All that hard work and graft and travel.
Yeah. Well, it is you're experiencing all those little gigs count towards. Like it's all experience and everything you learn from every single one of those. So like every one of them is important to build you to where you're going. You don't feel it at the time. You just feel like this is going nowhere. And you do have conversations with yourself, particularly when I was like working and doing gigs as well and missing like family time and then just being knackered all the time. And then I was just thinking, why am I doing this? And then you feel where it's going. That's the difference. You sort of build on it. And I think that's kind of what makes it addictive and equally feel like a mental illness.
When did you realize? When did you first realize you were funny? Like going back to like young Scott at school and that we all.
I wasn't really. I was sort of like I was a bit weird and shy. Like when I was at a little school, a little bit nervous and that.
Yeah.
Not much confidence. And then when I got to sort of high school, I think there was like a lot of comedy on telly. So there was like lots like Harry Enfield and there was like lots of like funny stuff and Red Dwarf. And that became sort of my personality in a weird way. I sort of like used that to make people laugh because I could do like, I remembered lines and like, that's when it started really. I think I would have been 12 when I sort of started watching lots of comedy. Young Ones was on a lot. And I was like, and then I really got into it. So I was like watching Blackadder and like even older stuff, Fawlty Towers, Steptoe and Son. And I was watching that at about 12. My dad had all the videos and stuff. So it was all from that age. And I think that just planted in my head. And then I pretty much, from that point on, pretty obsessed with comedy. And then I never actually stepped on a stage until I was 31 though. It took a long time to do that,
I think comedy is different, completely different to music, because when you turn mid-20s in the music industry, you got in a strange and wrong kind of way. You kind of like disregard of it being too old. It's mental.
Yeah. I think
as a comedian, you can start later on in life and make a career of it.
I think because you've got the experience. I think comedy is all about collecting experience and thought, and also with comedy, unlike music, you tend to get better and better. With music, I suppose you write better stuff and you experiment more, but you can still start with an amazing debut album. Like, you know, you can still come out of the blocks with something incredible. Whereas with comedy, there's a craft and a chipping away at it, and you do get better at it. And that's why it's different. I think interestingly with music though, I think comedians look at musicians' audiences with a little bit of envy. Because I've thought this so many times. It's like, if you pick up a guitar, strum a couple of chords, and then at the end, they'll clap, whether they liked it or not. Like, because it's like a Pavlovian thing. Yeah. The music's finished, now clap. With comedy, it's just not like that, is it? It's like there's just like a brutal judgment where they can just go, no, and you go, right. It's just weird.
And especially when you see like pop-up comedy venues that aren't really set up, and the crowd aren't aware of the etiquette of a comedy crowd, where they're just talking all the way through it. Like you know, a lot of I go to a lot of gigs, and music gigs in particular as well, and the crowd are talking through the band that are playing, which is rude and wrong. But if whoever's set up the comedy night hasn't been through the rules and the etiquette of a comedy crowd, then it can be a nightmare, that, can't it?
Well, it is. I often sort of wonder about that, because I always think comedy's got such a lo-fi setup. Like, it's a microphone, sometimes not even a mic stand. It's just one microphone in the corner, might not even have a light. It'll give him he can talk. So it's like they feel like sometimes it's one up from a quiz. Yeah. That's the thing. And sort of like, I always think like, you know, you get that sort of thing where people walk in. I always like to think people would walk into an abattoir, look at all the swinging meat, and like a corrugated roof with water coming down it, and go, well, do comedy in here on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
£3 entry. We'll just move the meat, couple of hay bales to soak up the blood on the floor. Well, that'll be cracking, that, you know, we got to get one light. We don't even need a light. We'll just do it. And then when it goes dark, just hold a torch up. And I've done venues where you just go, this isn't a gig. This is just like a man screaming into the darkness. But it is, I think that's sometimes, but when you start out, you literally have to. I've done gigs in corners of pubs where, and as soon as you walk up to it and you see free entry, you just think, right, okay, so they might as well put, this audience is not invested underneath free entry. This is going to be a nightmare. And you sort of walk up and I remember doing a gig on this like veranda, like it was it looked like a veranda thing with a little bit of carpet, and you stood there using a mic from the DJ's thing, which is like on a meter lead, like tethered like a dog outside a shop, you know, sort of like tethered, and then you sort of you sort of like that, and then you just sort of having to fight for the attention of people who are having carveries and shit, and you just think, and as you get further into you try in your head, you're thinking, I could still get a win out of this, because that's what comedians are like. I could still make this work. Like,
great! There's a stag doing.
Yeah. That's someone playing the fruit machine. You think, I'll just time his jackpot with the punchline. And you're sort of like, but as a comedian, you think you can get a win out of this. You're thinking, well, that's stupid, isn't it?
Have you always had that mentality where
I'm going to
win? You've got to survive, haven't you?
All comedians do.
If I can turn this round, I can turn anything.
Yeah. All comedians would walk into a wake and see the flowers on the coffin and think, well, it's still playable. There's a curtain behind me. I mean, it is the crematorium, but there is a curtain. Yeah. And you feel like as a comedian, you can make that work. So I think, yes, there is horrendous gigs that you do. But you lose that though as time goes on, the ability to fight for a gig. I think you just get, as you do better gigs, you just think, you stop being able to play that because you don't play it the same way. Yeah. It's weird.
Do you feel a bit more of a responsibility to the people around you as a headliner? So if there's a new young starter, it might be second, third, fourth gig or whatever. How do you feel like you've got a responsibility to help the people around you?
Yeah, I think as well, you do get asked a lot of advice and stuff. And I think it's quite simple. I think a lot of people say, "Oh, do you know how do you get this or how do you get to there?" And I think there's no answer. The only answer I know is how I did it, which was to write all the time and gig, graft. And I think that's what people don't want to hear sometimes, is that there's no way really, without flogging yourself. That's the answer.
Did you have somebody around you that helped you on the way up?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of people. I think I saw. Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of people who I saw with families who were doing comedy, like Rob Rouse and people like Ben Norris, who were doing comedy but also had a family life, and that was inspiring for me, because I thought, oh, they're managing to not torpedo their personal lives for this, which is very easy to do. And that was really good. So they were sort of inspiring, really, in a way. But it was more people like I'm out the same comedic year as Kyrie Pritchard, McLean, as like I'm just trying to think who else is in our group. Brennan Reese, Adam Rowe. There's a lot of people in our like leavers year, if you like, of when we started, who have all gone on to do great things. And I think it was like that sort of inspiring of like writing and gigging and working really hard and getting better. And I think that was a collective sort of looking at these people and thinking, oh, you see, you can do it. You just got to keep working really, really hard, So that was pretty much.
You said you started about age of 31. Do you feel like you held yourself back a little bit because you didn't think it was possible to do this and have a family?
No, I think to be perfectly honest with you, I started late because I thought I've got a career now. I had a proper job, and like we had one child, and then we had a house mortgage and stuff. And it's very easy to go, why would I want to upset this equilibrium in my life? Yeah. And some days I still feel like that, because it is really hard, like it's a really difficult job to balance sometimes this. But then I think, but being 31, I think I was quite ready for it. And I think I don't know what made me do it. I still don't know. I don't know if it was like a crisis or whatever, but I think I just thought, if I don't do this, then I'll never do this. And I think it's one of those things that when you discover you're good at something and it's a passion, and I never, ever felt like I didn't want to go and do a gig. Didn't care where it was, didn't care how much money I was being paid. Even now, like if someone said to me, it's a Tuesday night and it's 130 quid in Swindon or something, even now I'd be like, it's Tuesday night, isn't it? What are you going to do on a Tuesday? And it's not the money really. Although if anyone's watching or listening, obviously I need to be paid properly. But it's more the first thought is the gig really. Yeah. And I've actually done gigs before where I've done the gig, had a great time, come out, sat in the car and thought, oh God, I never got my money. I had to go back in. Because it's that I've enjoyed it that much. I thought, oh, right. Because that's how you think in your head. You think, well, that's what it's about. And it is what it's about. No one's doing comedy to be rich. Yeah. That's the truth.
Oh, yeah. Well, I recently listened to Jimmy Carr's book, and there's a big section in his book about the craft of a joke and the formulas that he uses to create laughs at certain points, and when he's playing with the audience and he's in his zone and he tries different things out. But what kind of systems do you use to keep the jokes coming?
I tend to use is I tend to come up with an idea and I'll type it in my phone, and then I'll sort of write it longhand, and then I'll do sort of spirographs of like where I think the punchlines is, and then I take it to a new material night. That's the first thing to do. You can have as many ideas as you like, but until they're working on stage, they're nothing. So then I take it to a new material night and try and do it, and then just sort of chip away at it and add bits. And bits are never finished. They can take years to fully go, oh, that's working as good as I want it to work now, I'll move on.
You memorize it at that stage.
Yeah. And I tend to sort of noodle away at it. And but I've started going up there a bit looser at new material nights with an idea, because as you get to be a better comedian, you can sell stuff better. So you sort of in your head, you think, well, I know I'm going to make this funny, even if I don't know where it's going, because I'm always going to workshop it with the audience. And that's the confidence you get after a lot of gigs.
So like just a bullet point, and then you just workshop the idea over a few.
Precisely. So there's a couple of ideas I've got now about like being an adult at a kid's birthday party, which I think has got a really good mileage. And it's like the parents everyone always thinks about the kids, but then effectively the parents are having their own party, because as a parent, you're only there because you're connected to the kid.
Yeah.
So you have this weird hierarchy structure. And I think like there's a really funny idea in the fact that you meet all these parents that you've never met, just sort of having to do small talk with them next to some sausage rolls. It's so weird. And then like, it's just like a really weird sort of hierarchy of whose kid's got the best party and all this sort of stuff. And have they provided a drink for the parents? Because that sort of like, there's a lot of tension. So there's that. And so I'll take that idea, which is parent at a kid's birthday party, and I will write it and where I think it could go. And then I'll take it on stage, I'll record it on my phone or film it. And then I'll just keep working it and go to new material nights. So I try and book in new material nights all the time. And that never stops. I mean, that even you could be a touring comedian doing arenas. You still got to run out of material. Yeah.
Absolutely. And well, like the craft of a joke and all that kind of stuff, and all the different ways and techniques that work for people just fascinates me. I'm just always interested to know how the magic happens. And it always comes down to graft, doesn't it?
Yeah, and everyone's got their own way of doing it. And I think that's the thing. I think you have to work a joke or work a bit. It's all about bits and routines. It's all about how opening routines, closing routines. They're the hardest. What are you opening with? What are you finishing with? They're always the nightmare, because you've got to hit the ground running. The opening one's important, but the closing one's just as important.
So that's what they remember, aren't they? Remember that more than
the goodbye bit. Yeah.
Well, one of my favourite sketches of yours, and I saw it on, you'd recorded it and put it on Facebook, is the one around watching a film quite late at night, and you, it's like madness. How are we going to get through this? Like putting a film, like, cause I'm 43. Are you a similar kind of age?
42, yeah.
But so the idea of, and it's kind of annoying that I didn't think of it and made something funny of it. It's one of those things that you just think, I could have said that, but you don't, because somebody else has already done it, which a lot better. But it's like the idea of putting a film on at 9:30 or something, and just thinking, there's no way we're going to get through this. And the way that you stretch it out over, is it a good like 10 minutes, that bit?
It's about 5 minutes.
5 minutes of it, yeah.
Yeah. But and it is the dynamics of how people fall asleep with the nod and the
getting shot like JFK being shot. You killed me on that. I fucking love that.
It's I like that bit. That was a new bit actually. That was a newer bit. So I'd workshopped that. But that came from a genuine phrase where I said to Gema, look, there's thingy on ITV4. I can't remember what film it was. It might have been The French Connection or something. I said, it's a brilliant film. She was like, no. I said, what do you mean? She went, we're not going to make it. And that's where it started. And we had a laugh. And I went, what do you mean? She went, well, it's put it on at 9, haven't they? I mean, it's just madness. And it's madness with the breaks and stuff. And then I, from that point on, I was like, well, that's a routine, isn't it? The fact that we're at that age now where we just discarded the idea of a film. It's too much to deal with.
Still makes me chuckle just thinking about it. And then the pandemic struck us all. The world went to shit. I think the comedy world was hit the hardest with the music industry. I think just because nobody were allowed inside and people started to diversify. When I did a podcast with Tom Binns, he built a stage on top of his van.
Yeah, I did a gig on that.
Did you? Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Go on.
I was just going to say, I did, I think, one of the very first gigs on top of that van in Haworth car park, Pond and Mills. That's when comedians were desperate to do gigs, isn't it? We're going to be a car park in Pond and Mills in Haworth on a van. Yeah, I'm there. Let's do that.
But it just shows how much you need it as well, I suppose.
Yeah. He had a great setup. He had mics and stuff and lights and a little rig. Oh, he knew what he was doing, old Tom.
On the video version of the podcast, you can go back. He gives us a tour of his van and he climbs on top of it and that. And proper stage on top and that. And he just carried on entertaining people.
He did He did say to me, if the wind gets up, I'm not liable.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. As I was climbing the ladder to go on, he went, have you got public liability? Good afternoon.
Yeah.
So we were doing those gigs to cars, which was like doing Glastonbury, and you find out they just meant the car park. That was a weird thing. But yeah, it was great. It was really good. It was really good.
So it must have hit the whole industry. How do you feel the industry is now? Things are starting to feel whatever normal is again.
Yeah, it was weird. I think it was like everyone sort of, comedy in particular, got hit. And I think everyone, but what it did was it sort of brought the comedy, it got a sense of importance, really, bizarrely. It sort of, people actually thought, oh God, we do need it. We do need it to get through things. And I think it brought a lot of people together. A lot of communities developed online that wouldn't have been there before. And I think it's like, it made it feel more like of a connection with people that maybe you would have never met otherwise if it wouldn't have been for the pandemic.
I just think comedians are kind of like and I heard this on the telly somewhere, they're kind of like the canary in the mine, where or if like a comedian or a court jester are the only people that can speak the truth in today's world sometimes, in front of the king or in front of the media or in front of a lot of people. So I think the whole world missed a lot during the pandemic with all the bullshit that were going on and all the lies and all the whatever conspiracy theories you want to go with or surround yourself with. The whole world missed comedy, because there wasn't those people out there. Yeah. No, it's telling people how it is.
Yeah. And I think that's why I think a lot of us had to do something. So that's why you saw a lot of people going online and using technology. I mean, it was lucky in a weird way that it happened when we had the internet and we had an ability to connect with each other. I think if it had happened in the 80s, it'd have been bloody miserable. Even worse, you got a box set of Bergerac. That's it. Once you've worn that out, you're back. You can only watch that so many times. So I think that was the sort of thing. Is that I think having the technology was wonderful.
Yeah. Well, loads of things came out of it. The Shed show came out of it.
Yeah, I've got my hoodie here.
There you go.
The Shed.
Merch.
So merch. So so that was precisely one example. Is that I sort of said, "Oh, I'm going to do a live stream from the Shed." Never done that technology. I literally had to learn how to stream, and I remember going on downloading OBS and all this technology I've never encountered, reading tutorials, and I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a live gig from my Shed. Didn't think any more of it, and then it just it took off a bit, and then it was a chance for me and Gema, my wife, to do something together, and so we did it regularly. I think we ended up doing like 58 through the lockdown, like an hour show every week, 58 hours of stuff, and it was just mad. It was just like it was a way of coping, and it was like battling my crap internet at the time, but it gave us that sort of chance to, I think, do something different. And I think it also, we had people watching that who'd never seen me do stand up. And I think as a result, I built a bit of a following afterwards. And those people have come and seen me do live stand up since. I said, we only saw you in the Shed. And I think it was just how things work. I think it was a really good selling point. Comedian in a Shed, very easy to understand. And I think I needed to gig,
Yeah. Well, it was great, and it led to the advert, of course, a national advert.
I know, yeah. Nationwide was a weird one. That was it. Yeah, totally bizarre. And I think that, again, they saw that and thought, oh, he's got a Shed, let's do that. And it's so weird how these things happen. I've often said this pandemic for my career has been amazing. And like, if I'd have known, I'd have done it years ago. I'd have been in Wuhan, chucking stuff about in the lab. I'd have been eating bats in the wet markets. I'd have been doing everything, because it's sort of, the world might have ground to a halt, but my career's flown. I can't deny it. So, so we did the advert for Nationwide, which again was totally surreal. I had to go to London and film it in a house in Fulham, where they had to sort of kick a family out and pay for their house for the day. So I stood outside. So it was not my Shed, you see. It's someone's Shed next to someone's trampoline. And then I had to write a joke and do the joke And they went, right, that's it. See you later. And I went back. It was bizarre, totally bizarre, but great fun. All these sort of things I've never done before. And I'm taking every opportunity.
When I did stand up for a year, I didn't work hard enough at it and enjoy it enough to do it, to carry on doing it. But opportunities came my way. I ended up doing a film from it. I started hosting music gigs because people saw, oh, you're a comedian, are you? Or you think you are.
Yeah.
You can start doing other things. And I kind of fell into doing interviewing, back into hosting music gigs, and fell back into music through comedy in a weird kind of way. So these kind of things, put yourself out your comfort zone, try new things, and new things blossom from it, which is kind of.
Yeah, you don't get anything, I don't think, unless you don't get anything unless you take a risk. That's it. And I think that's where comics are sometimes a bit risk averse, because comedians are like, even though we're outward and sort of, extroverts, the reality is a lot of us are quite like, ooh, you don't like promotion. There's always that thing about, for years, comedians don't like self-promotion because you don't want to be seen as arrogant, and you're like, but now you have to realize that's the game. You are selling yourself. You're selling yourself every night you stand on a stage. So you've got to get on board with that. As unpalatable as that might sound, you have got to accept that's part of the game. And
the Apollo, mate, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that was incredible, really. I mean, I've dreamed of doing that show. Every comic does, and I never saw it happening. It came out of nowhere. I literally was asked to go and do a gig in London, tiny little gig, didn't know anything about it, didn't know the people that were in there. And then 3 weeks later, I got the call saying you're recording in 2 weeks. It was just mad.
Were there so like talent scouts in there then?
Yeah. And it was so mad. And it was the producer, Anthony Caveney, who's a lovely man, and sort of like, he was like, he wanted you to do it. And it was just so surreal. And I still can't believe it in a weird way, going down there, coming out under the sign, and just so unbelievable. So yeah, it was like a moment where I'm like, my God, it's actually, and it's so hard to stay in the zone, in the moment in there, because you've done millions of gigs, but that's like, as a comic what that means. But I had such great fun. And,
what was the day like building up to, like, you're doing this thing later on? That must have been horrendous.
Yeah, it was hard. I didn't sleep much the night before because it's in your head, and then went down on the train, took Gema with me, and there's a lot of hanging about. Yeah. That's what there is. There's a lot of hanging about, and then you're sort of waiting to go on, and then you're on, and that's it. You that's happening. Was it
filmed in the afternoon, or was it at night? Or?
They do 2, so we were in the evening one, so we started at 7. Yeah. But yeah, I walked on stage, must have been about 7:30. And you do actually do 20 minutes, which they edit. Yeah. So it was just great. And the audience were brilliant. And you just have to play it like big, and you have to sort of use the stage and stuff. It's not like you're shuffling in your little comedy club. You're in a huge space. So, but yeah, it was just amazing. Just bucket list stuff,
Any kind of like funny stories from behind the scenes?
Well, I was trying to stay focused, but it's really hard because you're sort of going like, it's just another gig. And then, as I said to myself, it's just another gig. I had like these fans, like, so if they were like here around my ears like this, keeping my face cool because I had a hot flush. So I had fans like that. The makeup lady was putting shine on my face like this. And then they were sort of saying, right, your sushi's up there for when you come off. And I looked in the mirror as if to say, you've changed. You haven't even done this yet. Sushi, makeup lady, personal fans going.
I'm in London.
Yeah, I'm in London, darling. Get me a cab. And then when the sign came up, it's really hard to focus. And then you walk out under that sign, and it's like walking through smoke. And then you go, oh God. And then you're off. So it was great. Really good.
Brilliant. So what was the reaction like after?
It was great.
Like even people on your street and that would think, did you see Scott on telly last night? You must have had.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was bizarre. The really weird thing was obviously that we were meant to go out on November the 17th. That was when we were meant to be aired. But then it didn't happen because Bolton Wanderers and Stockport County went into extra time. So they bumped us to the following evening, which was, so you imagine that 10 years of graft, get everyone round watching the telly, and then you watch someone taking penalties for Stockport. So my kids think I play up front for Stockport. They're really confused. Like, I thought Daddy did jokes. And then, but then my dad rang afterwards because he's a proper joker, and he just generally went, "Watched it, son. You were brilliant," which made me laugh.
Yeah,
just lied. You were brilliant. Well done. Brilliant. Excellent. You haven't watched it, have you, Dad? Yeah, you haven't, because it didn't happen. Oh, right. So yeah, it was great. And but yeah, it went out the following night, and the people was great. And so it's been wonderful, the response, really.
Oh, just to finish off, and I feel like I've been in your living room for a couple of days.
Yeah.
It's weird because, you know, I've seen you on stage. I don't know you personally, but I feel like I do now because I've joined in with your brand new podcast. You're a comedian, of course. You've got a podcast now.
You have to. It's the law. Literally the law. The comedians now get asked to be like, "When's your tour? What's your podcast?" That's the two things. You literally have to have a podcast now as a comedian. If you haven't got one, they give you one. They just go, "Here's your podcast." I don't know anything about rabbit breeding. That's your podcast, mate. You've got to have a vehicle. So we've got one.
In your description, it says that you feel like you're not having conversations with Gema anymore, your missus, and this commits you to 1 hour a week, at least 1 hour a week of having a sit down conversation with your missus, which it's a thing because I don't feel like I have proper conversations with my missus. I've been married a lot of years, and it's important, and it's something you don't. It's something you just let happen, innit? Naturally.
Yes, and so I think it ticks two boxes. Basically, it's like our version of Relate, which is free, and also we get a podcast out of it. So in a really mercenary way, it's we are catching up. We never really get a chance to speak, and we're trying to create something out of it. So yeah, we do genuinely sit down for an hour on a Monday, record it on a Monday, sit down for an hour after the school run, and we chat. Well, it's about an hour and a half, and that's it. And then we go, "See you next week, darling." And that's it. So yeah, we do chat. It's called Brew with the Bennetts, BWTB pod.
I'll put a link to this podcast as well so people can join you and get involved with it. It's
like, oh, thank you, mate. It's early days. I mean, I'm editing episode 3 today, and we feel like sometimes I think when you do ideas for stuff, like we had the shed thing, and then we sort of come off the back of that and thought we want to do something else. We've always wanted to do a podcast, and then with this one, it felt like one of those ideas. When it comes out fully formed, you go like, "Oh, that's really good." Brew with the Bennetts. And I was like, "Oh, we'll do a photo shoot in dressing gowns with a logo, and then we'll have a logo designed." And then, I know Mickey P. Kerr,
proper theme tune.
Yeah, but Mickey P. Kerr, who was on Britain's Got Talent. From Leeds. Yeah. I said to him, "Can you do as a theme tune?" He did as like the Brew with the Bennetts theme tune, which has got like a glam rock. It's a really good, catchy tune. And then he did as a few stings in between for the edit points. And I thought, oh my God, this is actually coming together quite easily. Sometimes you have ideas for things and it takes a long time, but this one is like, it's basically Sunday morning. We're marketing a podcast like it's Sunday, you've had your brew, put this on, stick it on for an hour. And we try and do stuff. We have a laugh, obviously, but then I try and every week talk about something a bit thought-provoking. I think that's the other thing that we try and chat about. So it's like a Sunday Papers, but a funny version. So this week we're talking about everything from the contraceptive coil to makes the perfect gene to the clothing, not the human. Yes. And the other thing we're talking about is adverts that irritate us. So there's plenty in there. We're on
the first couple of episodes, you've had anxiety dreams.
Yeah.
You've had stuff up bums.
Yep, stuff up bums, mate. We're catering for everyone. You see, we've got the Guardian.
The kids are a big part of it.
Yeah, we've got the Guardian, and then we've got everything else. We're going to be going everywhere. It's going to be like every spanning the whole society. We want everyone to listen. So yeah, the plan is to just keep that rolling and then see where that takes us. But a lot of people have been really good. They've downloaded it and it's been really kind. So we're hoping to sort of build it, and then the plan is eventually, if it becomes what we want it to become, we do a little tour of it, do small venues and then do a live podcast, which is what most people do now, isn't it? Let's face it. But then Gemma's like, I'm not sure about the live. You know, I don't mind sitting in the dining room with you for an hour, but I don't know about going on the road. I think that's a bit too much. We've done caravanning holidays, and you know how they end up. Yes. But so I think but we're going to have to move to Gema's mum and dad's house next couple of weeks because we're having this knocked about. Okay. So we're going to be recording from a conservatory. So look out for that. That'll be next week. Tiny little conservatory with a soundproof door. So we'll be in there on put-up chairs, deck chairs. So do look out for that.
Have you learned anything new about Gema from doing it? I know you're quite new into it, but
yeah, I've probably learned that she goes to the toilet an awful lot during an hour. It just seems to go through constantly pausing that frigging podcast. It makes a nightmare to edit. But she's been, we've done so much together, really. So you sort of learn about your relationships. But I quite like Gema's. What I love about it is she's just totally honest. If I'm annoying her, she'll say it. If I'm not, So it is becoming a learning experience. She hasn't told me anything that I didn't already know, which is I'm irritating and I wang on way too long about inconsequential nonsense. So that's good to know.
Does she have a comedy background herself?
Yeah. So she did. Okay. She's done performance before. She's done like theatre, and she went singing. She was like in a singing group that went around Europe when she was younger. She's a really good singer, and so she sort of performed to an element. Not done stand up, but yeah, she's knows comedy like me, and it's been great. So easy to work with, and I think as well, there's so many podcasts which is two male comedians chatting. Or males chatting, and I think having your wife involved gives it an extra edge and a balance, and stops it getting too sort of laddie or too dirty. I don't know if it would, but it stops it going a little bit too far. Like whereas Gema sort of has that really good sorbet to it and brings sort of a real balance to it, and puts me in my place as I need to be.
So we can physically see the mechanics of her making you a better person.
Absolutely, mate. It's therapy and also improvement, life coaching in one go.
Well, Scott, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us for the podcast today, mate. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I presume, have you got some tour dates coming up and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I have, mate. Yeah, so it's scottbennettcomedy.co.uk.
Yes, I'll put a link on the podcast for everybody.
I'm doing a greatest hits tour starting in May called Great Scott, which is going to be like 10 years, all my favourite routines, which will be really good. I'm actually going to it's going to carry on into 2023. So I haven't got a Sheffield date in there yet, but we'll be doing the Lead Mill in 23. But there'll also be... there's Manchester Stoller Hall, there's Leeds Warehouse. I'm going to go all over. So that's on sale now. So that starts in May. We have a little break, then pick it up in the autumn. So it's very exciting. I'll
come to the Manchester one and the Lead Mill one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really enjoy you as an artist, and
thanks, Carl.
From seeing you all those days back upstairs in the Grapes, where you were headlining it and you were amazing then, just to see where you are now performing everything. Have I bigged you up enough?
No, so I started with the Grapes. That's all you need to say, mate. Started with the Grapes.
And I was there. Brilliant.
Yeah, you were there.
Cheers, mate. Have a great day.
Thank you. Cheers, Carl.
Cheers, pal. Thanks again.